Hi, guys. Thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel again, and I hope you'll keep doing so. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please retweet my stuff and send it around Blue Sky and send links to other people and refer them on YouTube to come check out my YouTube channel. I'm not fancy. You all now are now all familiar with my wardrobe of fleeces that I'll be wearing until things warm up out here on the East Coast. So yeah, as I said before, I think the days of the big studios, what we're used to at cable, are done because so many people are turned off cable TV and they're looking for independent news sources. The big newspapers, of course, are failing after they declined to endorse when the billionaire oligarchs told them they are not allowed to endorse once they found out that the actual journalism staff, the editorial staff, would be endorsing Kamala Harris. So the Washington Post, the LA Times, and a few others have lost credibility in that regard. So people are looking for different sources. We have this sense that when you watch somebody on TV, or sometimes if you look at their reporting in print now, even, you wonder, is it the hand of the oligarchs, the corporate bosses, sort of puppeteering them? And it's not real journalism anymore. And we know this is true in many cases because the good folks, the solid folks, the seasoned journalists and editorial folks are all, many of them are leaving. The latest being Jen Rubin leaving the Washington Post in protest. She's just not doing this anymore. She's too good. She's too honest. She's too knowledgeable. And she's just not going to kiss Jeff Bezos' ass anymore. Sorry. So, you know, good for her. So we're not going to be fancy. We set up our little at-home studios, and what you see is what you get. But you know that we're not answering to anybody but you. And that's where I am right now. But in order to keep doing that, I do need you guys to subscribe, to watch, and get everybody else to watch too. That's really appreciated. And speaking of cable news, Rashida Jones, who's been leading MSNBC for the past 4 years, the first Black woman to do so of any cable network, she is stepping down as head of MSNBC. And she has led ably for the past 4 years during the Biden administration, with the Trump stuff looming off there to the side and growing. And MSNBC in a unique situation because we know what Fox is. They're not news. They are Putin propaganda. They are basically state-run media. I am actually on video saying that on Fox News in the summer of like August of 2015. And yeah, I was saying that on Fox News, so, which I used to be on a lot. So Rashida Jones is stepping down. MSNBC has been in this unique situation in that they were all we had. We saw that CNN was selling out. I had hope for CNN once Jeff Zucker left, but then they got this right-wing owner and these other bosses that started really messing around with things. They weren't about journalism. They were just trying to figure out different ways to entertain you or get you outraged, but also very much fearing MAGA and doing this both sidesism, even though one of those both sides was careening towards authoritarianism, fascism, Nazism, white nationalism, and CNN normalized it, and they still are. So write them off. Okay. After Jeff Zucker, remember, he was Trump's little buddy. They were best buddies. They were like this. Jeff Zucker used to brag that he was Trump's personal booker at CNN. So they were both at, when Jeff Zucker was head of entertainment at NBC, he greenlit The Apprentice for Trump and saved his career, both his and Trump's career. And then he was elevated to running the network. Then Trump claims Trump got him the job at CNN. So when Trump was soaring, making everybody's ratings go through the roof, like in the summer of 2015, in the fall, all through 2015, when no one thought he could really be the nominee, and they were just having a good old time with this clown because he was great for ratings, and they knew what he was. And they made him the nominee. There is an infamous CNN staff town hall for all their different outposts. And Jeff Zucker at the time was getting an earful from producers, on-air talent, people behind the scenes. They were very concerned that the wall-to-wall coverage of Trump in a primary field of about 15 people But they were concerned that all this coverage of Trump, giving him so much more CNN airtime than the other candidates, in fact, more than the other candidates combined, was going to create him as the nominee. And Jeff Zucker's words, and this was in print, I think I read at the time in Mediaite, his words were, "I don't care. Keep the cameras on him till the eyeballs leave." Okay. So clearly, Jeff Zucker ruined CNN. Ruined CNN. And as I've told you before, when Trump wanted me kicked off CNN, it was on all the time. But I was telling some truths about him that he didn't want people to know. Picked up the phone, told Jeff Zucker to ban me. That was it. I was done. After years and hundreds of appearances on CNN, here we were still in the primary. And one primary candidate had that kind of power. That was unheard of. Trump did the same thing at Fox with me. It used to be that if a campaign dared make that kind of a call to a network, cable network, that was really risky because they might just ban you completely or go public with it. You just don't do that. There would be repercussions, but not for Trump. So CNN, you write them off. But MSNBC was the one that so many people looked to. Now, on my podcast over at Patreon, by the same name as this, Politics with Sherry Jacobus, I've had a guest on who was on anonymously, and he had worked at CNN, AOL, that whole conglomerate. And he said on my podcast, he explained why CNN was turning towards Trump, why they couldn't really go after this incredibly horrific, traitorous, disgusting, evil, criminal Trump. And he explained that it has to do with, hey, here's a big surprise, money, advertising. That increasingly these cable networks relied on sort of some of the dark money advertising. Yeah. And it's the right wing, it's MAGA that gets that money. The left doesn't really get that as much as the right. So they were chasing those MAGA dollars from these super PACs and whatnot. And they weren't going to give that up in the name of journalism, for crap's sake. So that explains CNN. That explains, of course, Fox News. Newsmax really wants those dollars. So now CNN had to compete with places like that and some of those other smaller right-wing TV stations. So that leaves you with MSNBC. Now, why is MSNBC different? Well, according to this former insider, who was pretty high up, tells us that because MSNBC is under that NBC umbrella, it's not subject to the same kind of advertising dynamic as the other cable networks. Because MSNBC is under NBC, they still benefited from the commercial advertising, like product advertising that you see on NBC, ABC, CBS, because the cable networks aren't really getting that. I mean, you might get your occasional My Pillow guy or something like that. But overall, that money is just not going there. So MSNBC, being under that NBC umbrella, was able to do actual journalism, for lack of a better way of putting it. That really is the truth. But we also saw them kind of bend to the will of Trump and fear. Okay, so where does that leave us? I think this is an opportunity for MSNBC, and I don't know who makes the decisions. I think it's still a MAGA guy, but it's an opportunity to revamp them just enough, keep what's good, what's working, and tweak it and make it even better to reflect these new, very dangerous times in which we live. Decide what your standards will be, and maybe, I don't want to say loosen them up, but expand the comfort level in using proper, strong language. I'm not saying drop the F-bomb, but proper, strong language, descriptive language to inform viewers what's going on in the Trump administration and on Capitol Hill and around the world. Don't sugarcoat it. Okay? Don't sugarcoat it. And no gratuitous both sidesism. And when someone loses the trust of the viewers as a journalist, as someone with credibility, get rid of them. Not to shame them, not to punish them, but it's not fair to your viewers. And I'm specifically talking now about Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Long past time for them to go. Okay? And this is not personal. I've known Joe since before he was a freshman, before he was sworn in as a freshman member of Congress. And I've known him, fairly well over the years. He used to be on his old shows. I think I've mentioned before, his old Scarborough Country show. I've never been on Morning Joe. But as I said, when Corey Lewandowski called in and defamed me, and I asked for equal time, or at least to have them read a statement saying that I dispute what Lewandowski said about me, Joe said no. He's not a journalist. You don't let someone do that and then just leave them hanging. But he did, because he was in Trump's pocket at the time. Now, back in May of 2015, when the Trump campaign was trying to get me to come work for them, and I merely agreed to have lunch with an old friend who was on the exploratory committee and was heading over to that super PAC they later claimed they didn't have, but did. And so in order to stave him off, I said, well, why don't we sit down and talk about it? Because you don't just say no to a friend of 30 years. So I did this. And he brings along Corey Lewandowski, who I'd never heard of. I didn't agree to lunch with the campaign manager for Trump. They ambushed me. Okay. During this lunch, again, I didn't know that I was even going to be having this. They were trying to talk me into what Corey was. Corey bragged to me that Trump had Roger Ailes of Fox News, Jeff Zucker of CNN, and Joe Scarborough in his pocket. And he also bragged about the close personal relationship Trump had with Bill O'Reilly, who had the big show, the big number one show on Fox at that time. But that was the word that Corey Lewandowski used to me. In his pocket. See, they were trying to convince me that it would be, really great, easy job. Because I'm thinking, yeah. I later, of course, said, hey, thanks, but no thanks, guys. Really, I think I told you that whole story. And that's why I was defamed. So, no, I did not agree to meet with Corey Lewandowski. But it was interesting at that meeting. Again, and openly talking about the super PAC. To the point where I thought, have the laws changed? At this point, Trump hadn't officially announced. He hadn't gone down the golden escalator. So I guess legally they could still do this, but, openly coordinating with the people who would be working on and running the super PAC. Yeah. So that's the history of Joe Scarborough and MSNBC. So then what do? Finger in the air to see which way the wind is blowing in order to keep their jobs at MSNBC. But then we saw them traipse down to Mar-a-Lago after Trump was elected. And again, I want to specify something, because I know Senator John Fetterman is using the same excuse. Well, all these people voted for him. We're going. They all try and couch it in these terms to make them sound professional. For Fetterman and for Scarborough, you know what? You do not have to go groveling and crawling on your belly down to the man's private home, the home in which he stored stolen documents, and kiss the ring. You can wait until after he's president and meet with him like normal people do in the White House or wherever. So don't believe these people when they make these excuses. And Joe Scarborough just keeps digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And he still has a job, and he shouldn't. So the woman who's the acting head of MSNBC right now is somebody who comes from CNN. I remember her. She used to book me when I was on CNN a lot. And I don't think that she really would be in a position or have the authority as a temporary acting figure to fire Joe and Mika, or to do any kind of shuffling around, getting rid of people who are no longer useful and replacing them and trying something a little different. We know that Rachel Maddow is coming back full on, at least for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, I think through the inauguration, and that's good news. But she was so overworked and needed a break. Perhaps she could do that Johnny Carson thing where you work 4 nights a week and get 1 day off. Because we don't want to burn her out, and we need Rachel. She's excellent. So let's put her in the keep pile and make her happy, and give her the resources she needs to do this show so that she doesn't become exhausted and burned out. Okay. That is not the place to cut corners when you've got that kind of talent. But Joe and Mika gotta go. And maybe a couple of the Nepo babies. Sorry, but yeah. um, get actual political journalists, people who have spent their careers as political journalists, immersed in it, where what they say, what they do, their reporting has impact and accountability. As for the commentators and political analysts, same. Get people who have actually worked in the field, not trying to go age, gender, skin color. I mean, there are now enough people out there where you can find that balance. It's not going to be all white men. We know that. But I get the sense that sometimes they're just picking people because they're readily available. Oh, and they don't really check their bios. Okay. At any given time, there are 10,000 congressional staffers on Capitol Hill. There are a lot of former staffers. There are people from campaigns. And there's also a big difference between running a campaign and working on a campaign. That is something that bookers and producers need to pay attention to. You can work on a campaign in a low-level job for a couple of months. That's a horse of a different color than people who have done it for a living for a long time, run campaigns, or had very senior jobs on big campaigns, where what they advised, what they did, their work mattered, and they were accountable for it. But there are some people on TV who got on TV as pundits saying they had political experience when they had some low-level job where they worked for the strategist. They themselves were not the strategist. It is harmful for people who are not actual political strategists to go on TV giving political advice. Because you know what? Candidates and campaigns and the general public listen to that and they think they're being given experts, and they're not. The same for the legal experts. A corporate lawyer who's spent his career doing mergers and acquisitions, making tens of millions of dollars, who failed to get jobs that he went for in the Trump administration, gets on TV because of clever tweets and a famous ex-wife. That is not okay. We are not here to be entertained. Now, there are some people who are on who give kind of good, interesting color commentary with a relative to what this means in our culture and that sort of thing. And I think it's appropriate. But please don't ask them to give political advice or strategy. It really is a science. I know this because I've done it and I've taught it at the master's level. So to tell me that somebody who had a political blog and dated the right people to get in at Fox, and then after that just sort of made her way around to the different cable nets and has credibility as a political strategist, I'm sorry, but that's nuts. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous. So it does matter. It does. And I'm not just saying this because the people who are the real deal feel professionally insulted, and rightfully so, to see people on TV passing themselves off as political strategists who aren't political experts, and they're not. There really is an impact to this. I mean, and I've talked to other political folks who actually do work as political strategists and consultants, and they have told me, we've discussed this, how when you go to talk to campaigns and you're like, okay, we should do this and this and this, you tell them why you're saying this, and they'll go, but so-and-so says, and they'll quote somebody on TV who's never actually been paid a dime to do political strategy, and all of a sudden you have to pull that candidate and that campaign kind of away from that and let them know how it really is, what the realities are. So when bookers and producers put these people on TV, they've made it really, really difficult for the actual pros to do their jobs. That's just the truth. So there's a whole lot of this friends of friends on. It's like a little bit of a clique. MSNBC is kind of a mixed bag. They'll have really fantastic professionals, legal analysts, people who have been, worked for AGs and been former federal prosecutors, people who get this stuff. But then they'll put on some gadfly who's entertaining. And I think I've shared that. I know when I used to be on Fox, they'd put me on like with another woman, say it's another blonde woman, and kind of be in my earpiece saying, "Don't go into the weeds," meaning don't talk about legislative process, because this person didn't know the difference between a committee hearing and a and a committee markup. And this was a paid political analyst on Fox. Yeah. Didn't know the difference between the presidential season, didn't know the difference between a primary and a caucus. That's not in the weeds, folks. That's not getting in the weeds. That's pretty basic stuff. So it is important. It is important to get the right people. And I think that this is an opportunity now for MSNBC to really tighten things up and kind of lead the way and maybe be the example that other cable networks follow and copy. You know, do it for real, and do it because there's so much at stake right now. There's so much at stake. We can't afford to make mistakes. We're still resisting, but don't patronize us with people who aren't experienced just because you think they're entertaining or clever. I hope they shake up the lineup again. If we can keep Rachel almost full time, I say 4 nights a week, give her 1 night a week off. There's plenty of good people around to serve as her fill in, like our friend Michael Steele. He's good. And get rid of the Nepo babies. There, I said it. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just we do deserve better. The profession, the political profession, the journalism profession deserves better than this. And I think when you think of it along those lines, you would have to agree with me. So I'm hoping, I wish Rashida Jones well. I think she's going to go on and be a solid manager somewhere else. Maybe she can take some of these smaller entities and grow them. But she did this for 4 years while Biden was president and Trump. And we had January 6th. We had all this stuff going on. And MSNBC was our only bastion of any hope or truth. And a lot of this just sort of happened that way. But again, it was some of the people who are on the air there who have shows that shouldn't. And again, this isn't about, oh, I hate them. This isn't about my feels. Trust me, I don't care. This really is about taking the cable network that we need the most to be the best that it can be and making that happen. No excuses. No, well, we like this person, or well, this person is friends with this one, or no. Nope, 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 nope. There are a lot of people out there who could be very good at this. And some maybe who have great experience who aren't going to be good at this. But I think that the network owes it to us, the viewers, to make that effort to find those people. Just do it. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but again, with Rashida Jones leaving, and hopefully she can leave it in good hands with somebody who will make these necessary changes and be tougher, be a little bit of a hardliner on this, and do it so that we have at least one cable network that's going to be covering the Trump administration and the MAGA Congress and the invasion of Greenland and anything else, doing it honestly and thoroughly, doing it right, and stop being such a little copycat, click at the network. Yes, I said it, and everybody knows that's true. Again, powerful people there, they bring in a friend, So I hope that happens. I hope that happens. And in terms of targeting your audience, I'm going to note yet again that 2020 voters who did, they maybe they didn't show up in 2016, but they showed up in 2020 because they wanted to stop Trump. They wanted justice. They wanted accountability. And then after that, we get January 6th and and that sort of thing. And we find out about the stolen documents and find me 11,700 whatever votes, blackmailing Zelensky, saying we'll withhold aid to Ukraine unless you give us dirt. If that's you announce an investigation against Joe Biden, we know you won't find anything. We don't care. Just to do it. Yeah, all these Trump crimes, all this stuff that we later found out, in addition to the crimes that he had already committed. So, folks showed up in 2020. They saw after 4 years, Merrick Garland say, no one is above the law. Well, guess what? We now know with the Jack Smith report that Merrick Garland did, in fact, put Trump above the law. Yeah. So we're smarter as viewers, as consumers of cable network news. We can demand better. We can be discerning. We don't have to fall in love with the meat, as they say, with the people who are on TV. Fall in love with what they do, not with who they, not because you think, oh, they just seem really nice and that kind of stuff. Demand better because we deserve it. And MSNBC is, at this point, looks like they're the only ones who's going to bother to give it to us. But I think we do have to demand it, and they can deliver it. They can deliver it, but we need to make our voices heard on that, because again, they're all we got. We got a tough 4 years ahead of us. Really, a tough 4 years, and we need to hear from the experts, not just the people that we'd like to have a beer with. So this is their chance to change things, to make things better, to improve things, to regain a little bit, get back a little bit of the trust that many Americans have had in general cable news. But I think they are our only hope. And I can see why viewership has dropped off. I can see why viewership has dropped off. We feel a little bit betrayed. So they can fix it. They can fix it now. And I hope they do, because I don't know what else we have. So thanks, guys.